No, but I don't know what to do. I guess I'm gonna leave my phone with you if I start, and then if he texts or calls, answer it or just text him.
Okay.
I had told him this one, but
When you change the link for the live stream, can you like share that on YouTube? Thank you. Oh yeah, Abir, can you tell me the clips that you're gonna show?
first one is, and I can do it from here while I'm
Yeah, I
talking.
just want to like share the screen of this one. Like I'm gonna show the movie here and share the screen, so that's better, I think. Let me just take this out. There you go. Whatever it says, don't press format, please. Okay.
Well, yeah,
I swear to God, I hate men for this reason. They're so unprofessional.
Maybe that depends on context. Maybe the context that people feel like that. The way that I'm seeing it,
so I feel like part of what you're saying, yeah, it's on your kind of time where you're reading into it, but now the way I see it, not just and obviously it's a spiritual thing also like and that's what I feel is like the way like you're adding your yeah. And that's what I see happening. Yeah. And so what happens is like as this as these movements are happening, as these like uprisings happen, so much people involved, there's so much like just power hungry bringing her from versus that's kind of where I was like, what's thinking about it, also about and that is something that we are really, really
Okay, now I do need the
because so many of them which are part of the South Asian world, have been dislocated in so many different ways. I'd say that the a critical mass of Adivasis as South Asia exists why they language because they have
and I need to plug this in. Ya le mandé el link a Pratik, pero creo que no está haciendo nada.
need to
¿Puedes write that down?
be mutually
Like los minutos. ¿En mi cuaderno?
I think you would actually look at the examples and see both processes that are if I don't, if I don't share the new,
You might need to start. Yeah.
Yeah, your question is fine.
If you have a link for me,
I think she sent it to you.
Yeah, I sent you.
It's easier to answer.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Just to make it.
That's the idea.
Every time someone says cosmology, I can relate.
I remember asking your brother what you and your brother used to do, and I don't have any.
you can't use the lower side. I don't like them with that. I can't tell you.
Why would you ever bring it up there?
He's gonna have that. That's cute. Because I'm sure he'll think something different from everyone else.
You're so cryptic earlier. I was like asking my dad about and he's like, how you doing?
So I just want to share some sharing this with you to see if you can see your vocabulary. This is also your people watch it also. Can you see it with us? So we'll start in. Okay, so yeah. Okay.
I know, right?
When do you want to start?
There are more people outside. Let us know when to start.
Shall I?
Yeah, tell them. Hay una mandarina ahí si tienes. ¿Pero estás segura que no necesitas? ¿Cómo esquina? ¿Esta esquina? ¿No? Ah, no. ¿Tampoco se puede ir?
Hay que ver el libro. I was actually surprised how the Zoom presentation went. It was like, oh, so yeah. So Abir, before you like start each clip, could you give me like I don't know like 10 seconds so I can put the notification?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe ¿por qué no me pasas una por ejemplo?
So I'm going to go ahead and get started with our film discussion. Thank you all for joining us and engaging in this. Before I begin or continue, I just want to further acknowledge I can't go. I wouldn't feel right to facilitate a conversation about Palestine and occupation and oppression without again acknowledging that we are sitting on stolen indigenous land that belonged, specifically right here, belonged and still rightfully belongs to the Chumash community, and just honoring that and keeping that in mind when I do and when we all do talk about Palestine. So my name is Abir. I will be facilitating this phone discussion today with the director of the film, which is really great that we can have him with us right now. Sabi was. So Sabi is a Palestinian American activist who made this film, which is called Palestine Why the Cage Stuff Sings, to educate the public on the occupation of Palestine and bring attention to the Palestinian reality of living under apartheid. So since we unfortunately do not have time to watch the whole film, I've chosen 2 clips for us to watch and discuss that to me, showcasing themselves the main themes of the entire film. And so just in terms of formatting, following each clip, I will ask somebody a question and he will answer that, and then I'll go into the second clip. And after we have finished discussing both of them, then I will open it up to all of you and open up the space for you all to be able to ask questions and engage in the conversation. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the first clip.
1 second.
To learn this. So I talk to more people who live through it to get their perspective. وكيف هذه كيف العيشة هذه؟ العيشة كويسة أعطوني مثلا شو هو بيسوي؟ يعني مثلا فعاليات المسخرة بيطلع واللي يسكت يضغط عليها طب الجيش بيسووا شيء موقفهم؟ لا الجيش واقف معايا. هو الدور ده احنا بنخليهم يكونوا مش عليهم. ولا بيمسكهم ولا بيصير فيهم ولا شيء. المدينة العربية كانت فيها مشكلة جسدية. المهم الأراضي العربية معينة، الأرض العربية الدولة NGOs فيها ضوء فيها ماشيين واللي هم بتاخدوا يعملوا ماشيين صحيح 100%. طب المزارع الوصلات والذين تستخدمون بدك تصريح خاصة، بدك تعمل حواجز، بدك انت بتخلي حياة الأخرى مستحيل. We're still in the Fundamental Settlement. These trees have survived since the days of the Roman olive tree. This land belongs to Palestinians. When more and more Palestinians refused to sell their lands to settlers, what settlers did is, just to show you how people, some of these people are, they came and sprayed poison, not just set on fire, but first, they went ahead and sprayed poison on all these trees, and now all these olive trees have not only died, but they will never again bear olives or continue to grow because of the poison in the spring. And this is what they do to Palestinians. It's either you sell your land, or they're going to go ahead and come over.
So first, it emphasized the importance and need of elevating the voices of people on the ground, and not people on the ground who are being directly affected by this violence, right? And not talking for people, but giving a platform for them to have their own voices heard. And also, what was really powerful for me is that you went beyond people. And we're also paying attention and paying homage to the effects of violence and occupation on the environment, which is something that is not often talked about. And so you're talking about the earth and the land, and you end it, that clip ends with even the trees are not free. And that really encompasses the overall effects of oppression and colonialism, right? It's not just about one aspect, it's about, affecting the whole environment that we live in. So my question, Sabi, to you is, you identify, you say in the beginning of the film, which we didn't see, but you identify as a Muslim Palestinian American. And so as a member of the diaspora, and you also say that you're not a filmmaker, but as a member of the diaspora, I was kind of hoping that you can talk to us about why you choose art as a platform and through this art through film, as a platform for stimulating conversations around the Palestinian struggle. And what is to you the value that you see in bridging activism and identity and art together?
Could you hear me first of all?
Yes.
It's the first time I've been somewhere like this. So I've been an activist for a long time, and I decided I got to do something extra besides just always going to protests and attending lectures and events. So I decided, why not try to make a documentary? And even though I have no experience in ever making something like this, and even though it's for everyone to see, my main intention when I made this is to address it mainly to the American people, because across the world, the majority of people already know what's really going on and stand with the Palestinian people. It's just mainly here in the US that the majority of the people do not know what's really going on, and it's because of the US media always doing what they can to hide Israeli war crimes, Israeli apartheid, and so be it. So I decided, 2014 was like my last straw. I can't just keep going to protests and keep going back. I have to do something else. So since I was born in America and I lived my whole life, why not go ahead and make a documentary where I can mainly get the points that I know my fellow Americans, if they see it, they will wake up. And a lot of people that I've spoken to, they used to be pro-Israeli. I knew how to give them certain facts and let them search for themselves to finally wake up and say, oh wow, we were brainwashed. And so it was important for me to let them know that, hey, look, I'm not saying I want rights for Palestinians only. No, I said we want rights and dignity for Palestinians, both Christians and Muslims, has the same rights as their fellow counterparts. I just want rights for everyone to have the same rights there. And it's like saying, it's like asking someone how would you like it if suddenly all of a sudden they had new laws pop up where whites only have special privileges and everyone else has second or even third class privileges here in the US. No one would agree to that. So it's basically that's all I want for the audience to understand.
And can you kind of, I guess, expand more on the identity and art piece to it? Like, how did you, I mean, you were saying like you wanted something more in the protest. How did you get involved in or how did you get the idea, like the tools and the help of putting it together?
So I've always been a big fan of Michael Moore. I thought he does a phenomenal job of how he does his documentaries. And this was like if you know me, you know like this is one thing that was a really big test for me because I'm the opposite of tech savvy. I have my son do things on my cell phone for me that because I just can't figure these things out. So when I watched 5 cameras, that's what told me, you know what, why not at least give it a try? At least people could see that I'm trying. The whole thing's out of pocket. I've traveled to several states showing it all out of pocket. They offered to cover my expenses. I wouldn't allow it because I promised every single mother that I interviewed that I will not take a single penny. So I would not even let them compensate me for the hotel because I simply want these people's stories to hear. And I decided, let me start covering things that most people don't see. Instead of just always emphasize on the Israeli soldiers being a Palestinian, where they could always lie and say, oh, they were attacked first, I wanted to do something different. Let me sit down with a mother in her house. Let me show you a scene like you're looking at right now, showing you how Palestinians that were living there for centuries have to take these dirt roads when paved roads are for Jews only. And like you said about the tree, it was important for me to let people see, look, even trees cannot be left alone. They're burned, they're poisoned, they're set on fire. So I decided we need more people to understand that they're not just affecting the Palestinian people, they're affecting, like you said, the agriculture, the land. They always, in the middle of the night, attack farmers' olive trees, their crops, which a lot of people don't know, and a lot more people need to start knowing about what's really going on. Because once more people really know what's going on, especially in this country, slowly for the first time, I don't know if you noticed, but since the last election, the numbers are showing that more and more people are standing for the Palestinian people and their rights.
Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and show the second clip, and then we can have our conversation about that. And so for this clip, it's more towards the end.
The world, but there's another superpower that can make the difference. You. There's a movement with hundreds of thousands of people just like you across the world, including Palestinians and Israelis, protesting, educating, divesting, and boycotting, all to bring nonviolent international pressure on Israel to stop violating human rights of Palestinians. Throughout history, where governments have failed to push for justice, people just like you, like us, have taken the lead and won. Now it's the Palestinians' turn for freedom and justice. We can pressure Israel to end the occupation and the discrimination. We want all people, Jews and Palestinians, to have equality, human rights, and democracy. We can change history. We can change history. We can change history. We can change history. We can change history.
So what do I want? I am sure that's what many of you are asking. I want the Palestinian people to not always have to fear for their life when they approach an Israeli checkpoint. I don't want to always see a Palestinian mother cry in tears, wondering if she will be persecuted if she accepted identity. I do not want to see my family members fearing for their lives if they ever approach an Israeli soldier while with me and a camera in my hand. I simply want all people, Palestinians and Israelis, to live together in peace. Yes, we can change history by living in power. We must get involved, let's get together. I urge you, I plead with you, look at these faces. All these people have one thing in common. They are all Jewish, and they are all condemning and criticizing the Israeli government for its racist apartheid policies. This has nothing to do with the Jewish people. This has to do with the Israeli government. Please join us. Join us and join the hundreds of thousands of Jews across the globe that will not allow the government of Israel to represent them, just as I will not allow groups like ISIS and Al Qaeda to represent me as a Muslim. We must stand together. Apartheid was wrong in South Africa. Apartheid is wrong right now in 2017. So let us get together and change history.
So this ending clip, to me, obviously it showcased the reason you made this film, and the vision that you had for it and for your activism and work in general. And it was interesting to me that you tied in the Palestinian struggle with various other fights that we have seen in the past are currently happening against occupation and oppression of all kinds. And you're encouraging people to not only be more conscious, but also get more involved, right? In the various ways that you that in the clip demonstrated. And so that was the first part to me. And the second part to me that was powerful was you make there's a clear distinction between identity or religion and the state and the government, and saying that you don't always have to just follow it, and that you imply that the former, right, so our identities are what must guide our community building and solidarity work, and not necessarily the latter, which would be the states and the governments and institutions, which are inherently in terms of Israel oppressive, but also in terms of the U.S., right, in itself is also, we just opened with indigenous panel, right? And that show in itself was showing that the U.S. is also an oppressive country. And so I'm trying to tie this all back to our theme, right, of altered globalization. That is the theme of this whole conference. And so my question, I guess, kind of has also two parts. But how do you understand your art as an influencer of different forms of community support and coalition building? And have you seen any direct outcomes of or from this particular film or other work that you have engaged in? And also, if you can talk a little bit more about disrupting the discourse on state and governments and that being what we should be aligned with versus focusing on identity and letting that guide our solidarity networks.
Okay, just begin one by one. Give your first question.
Okay, so the first one we can talk about your understanding of your art as an influencer of different forms of community support and coalition building, and have you seen any direct outcomes of this particular film or just work you've engaged in general?
Like how I see this art as how it contributes to me. It's basically telling people, look, this is a film I made, and of course the audience didn't get to see the whole thing yet. I should be uploading it on YouTube later this month, so hopefully everyone gets a chance to watch it. And go ahead and search the truth and see for yourself. These facts, these are all facts that I put out there. As you, I don't know if you watched the whole thing. I even sat down with Archbishop Theodosius, which is the priest of one of the holiest churches of Christianity. And basically, a lot of times I found, at least it does for me, I'll watch a documentary, I could watch a certain movie, it will really resonate, it will really like hit me in the heart. I was only 14 years old when I watched Dead Poets Society. It's my favorite movie of all time, starring Robert Williams. And that movie changed me. I believed that I could make a difference just by watching that movie. And with most high school kids only cared about having fun, all that, I started getting into activism as early as in high school, growing up in inner city Chicago. And I don't do just work for Palestinian. The organization I'm with, the Anti-War Community in Minnesota, we do work for the Native Indigenous people, Black Lives Matter, for MIRAC, for all the immigrant rights. And I'm almost always the lead chanter in all these protests. I pour my heart and soul when I chant for these people, because I believe you have to care about everyone's injustice, not just your own. And so I've really seen a difference. A lot of people who watched it, they're like, wow, I didn't know these things. They start knowing them. Even some Palestinian people, just who grew up here their whole lives, they felt like, you know what, it made us feel like we need to start learning more about what's going on with our people and not just keep thinking we can't make a difference. So I really do believe that art can make a difference. It does with me. And I just hope maybe people finally get a chance to watch the whole thing. They also feel connection and they feel like, you know, it's time that they start learning more about what's really going on. Because if you really search into what's going on over there with the Israel-Palestine issue, it has so many other ties to what's going on. It reminds you of what happened here to the indigenous people of this land. And, you know, a lot of people are upset about what's going on with police brutality. They'll find out that a lot of the police in the U.S. are trained, I don't know if you guys know, that are trained in California by the Israeli military. What's the next question?
So the second question was focusing more on that, the distinction between identity, religion, culture, ethnicity, and state and government and institutions. And you're implying to me in that last part that the first one, right, is what should be guiding our community building. Yes. You were talking about the groups that you are working with. So how do you see that? Why do you see that coming about, right? Why focus on the identity or who we are, right, versus, or what we align with politically versus the state or the government that we live under, right? Because again, tying into diaspora, right, I'm technically, you know, born and raised in America and American, but I do not agree, right, and will condemn a lot of the actions of the American government. So how do you balance that? How do you bring that about? And how would you, I guess, encourage or motivate the rest, other people to focus on that versus just feeling like we have to be aligned to the state or government?
Well, it's really simple. I keep trying to remind people, when criticizing the state of Israel, I'm doing just that. I'm criticizing the state of Israel. I'm not criticizing the Jewish people. It's like the number one defense, Zionist. It's a tactic they use, and they see now it's getting tiresome. But for a long time, it didn't work for them. They'd always try to throw that anti-Semitic at people. They try to make a point of criticize the state of Israel. I'm Palestinian, for example. People who know me know that I condemn the Palestinian Authority without any hesitation. I'm Muslim. I condemn the governments of Saudi Arabia, the governments of Jordan, the governments of Egypt, all those dictatorship governments. But I also remind people that I condemn the U.S. government for supporting these countries, keeping these governments in power, keeping these dictators in power. And I try to wake up the American people, because American people, the ones that are asleep who just watch Fox News, they'll think of something like, oh, Saudi Arabia, they have this bad regime in power. I'll tell them, well, why do you stop there? The U.S. government supports them. A lot of people don't know this, but Trump, when he recently went to Saudi Arabia, he signed a $102 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia. So I tell the American people that support Trump or the U.S. government, you keep talking about a government, well, you just heard that your government made a $102 billion arms deal with them. Why do you stop? Why do you not criticize your government? It's okay to criticize your government. If you criticize the U.S. government, you're not criticizing America, the land, or the country. You're talking about the government. We have to get better. We have to change it. That is why it took centuries for African Americans to finally overcome slavery, or what happened to indigenous people in this land. It took a long time for them to stop being slaughtered, because so many people thought they can't say anything against the government or the country. Same thing with Israel. I let it be known that my fight is against Zionists all over the world. And people have to understand there's also Christian Zionists as well. So it's okay to criticize the government and a state without worrying about someone trying to label you as being anti-white or anti-America or anti-Israel. You should be able to differentiate between the Jewish people and Zionism, which is a racist movement, the ideology of it. And many Jewish public figures like Norman Finkelstein, I interviewed his house, Miko Pele, Ariel Gold, and many others, journalists, Gideon Levy, will tell you, they'll tell you straight out that Israel does not represent Judaism. It's based off a racist ideology just started a little over 100 years ago.
Thank you. So now I'm gonna kind of open up the space for anyone else to ask questions and engage in this conversation. Anyone want to start us off? Yes.
First off, thank you for being here today, and I look forward to watching your film in its entirety. But I was wondering, sort of based off what you just said about the government of Israel being responsible, rather than Jewish people as a whole, how do you think we could combat the sort of Zionist ideology that is really pervasive throughout Israel and a lot of Jewish discourses? For example, I know that a lot of Jewish sort of mindset is that Israel exists sort of to flee persecution. And a lot of this is sort of thrown on by the Israeli government in a sort of propaganda style that they're constantly under attack and that Israel exists as a defense mechanism and that they deserve that, right? So how would you sort of plan to combat this pervasive sort of propaganda ideology that that Israel exists and must exist in order for Jewish people to be safe?
Yeah, I've heard the last part. The first part, when she was turning computer, kind of broke up. the last part saying, let me just first say, to make it clear, you're saying for those people who try to say that Israel was created because the Jews fled persecution of Europe and it has to exist for the protection. How do we combat that? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, it's really simple. Israeli historian, so I'll give you all my sources using Jews themselves, so you don't say there's any bias in it. Israeli historian, his name was Ari Uvnari. He went ahead and said the #1 safe haven for Jews during the Holocaust were in Muslim countries. They fled Europe. We need to make it clear because, see, that's another thing that the U.S. media likes to do. We want to go ahead and paint a brush for other people. Like they want to make it seem like all African Americans are thugs, all Mexican criminals. They like to always remind people about Muslim extremists, try to condemn in every possible way. And I wish they all get rounded up and just, you know what I mean, and just rid of them. But they keep forgetting that when the Jews did flee Europe and the persecution, it wasn't just about Nazis. They used the word Nazis. They were extremist Christians. And the #1 safe haven for the Jews during the Holocaust was in Muslim countries. So them fleeing doesn't mean you simply go to another land and start taking over their lands, taking over their homes, and killing them, and then letting people forget about what happened to them in 1948. 750,000 Palestinians fled their homes because of what these invading Zionists started coming in, and they didn't come in with flowers and box of chocolate. They came in with machine guns, and when they started with these little towns, the word spread to other towns, like, hey, there's these people just attacking all these farms, and they fled. Well, international law says they're allowed to come back to their homes after a war, and they weren't allowed to. These people still have the keys to their homes. If you watch my film in entirety, you will see a man named Musha in Hebrew, interviewed right in the middle of an entire majority Jewish market in the Sharia market in Jerusalem. And he tells you his parents still live in Morocco. And he tells you that his parents are there because they're living like kings and they're treated warmly. And I ask him directly, I'm like, so they're living there in a Muslim country, even though they're Jewish, do they know you're Jewish? He says, yes, and we're loved, and we're greeted, and we're always treated, and we're all one. So they have the same rights as everyone else there. The Jews living in Iran have the same rights as everyone else there. You can't suddenly, like I'm a Muslim, I can't suddenly right now travel to Iran and get more rights and privileges than the Jews who have lived in Iran for centuries, because that is what's right. I would not stand for it if I went to Morocco or Iran right now and was given more rights because I'm Muslim. I will be the first to be on the street and protest and chant to go ahead and stick up and stand up for my Jewish brothers and sisters if I find out that suddenly that changed. The people that fled Europe had every right to flee Europe, but it doesn't mean you go to another country and you simply take that land by force. That's not how it works. What if suddenly people fled persecution right now in Burma, in Myanmar? They suddenly came to the U.S. to, say, North Carolina, and then they started attacking Americans in North Carolina because they're fleeing persecution. That doesn't mean that it's right. I will not stand up for it. So, of course, what happened in the Holocaust is horrific, but it doesn't mean you go ahead and just do what you did. And it's not, at least stand up and speak up about it. Like, this is what happened. It's unfortunate. They won't even do it. Like, how would the native indigenous people in this country, after on top of what happened to them here, imagine if the textbook did not even talk about it. In Israel, and these are Israeli historians will tell you, they don't even teach them about what happened in 1948. It's not in their textbook at all. They are told that they came to a land that had no people. My father and my mother are older in the state of Israel. They were born there. How was it a land with no people? Is my dad did he just invent out of thin air? So just basically just combat them with the facts.
Anyone else have a question? Did you? Oh, you? Great. I didn't see hands.
Hi, Well, I want to say thank you for having this talk. I'm curious if you're saying.
Closer to, just so he can hear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. So, I'm curious, I said thank you, but also, I'm curious if you're saying that, because some of the images that came up said, for example, the Orthodox Jews against Israel, against Zionism. Are you saying that Israel should not exist as a state? Or are you saying that there should be a two-state policy? Saying that it should be a one state, maybe not under the Palestinian Authority, because you said you don't agree with what they're doing, but yeah, what's your opinion on that?
Until the state of Israel does not insist that it has to recognize itself as a Jewish state, that the state of Israel, keep in mind the words, listen carefully, the state of Israel right now declares itself as a Jewish state. That alone is a racist statement. If it declares that it's a state for all, I don't care what it's called. You can call it the boogeyman. I and most Palestinians, I know because I was there, I have a lot of family there, do not want a two-state solution. Because a two-state solution means Palestinians still cannot travel to their homelands, whether it's Jaffa or Haifa or Akka or any of those places, or even Jerusalem. Why should my sister, who was born and raised here her whole life, why should she not be able to go to Jerusalem and pray in the Holy Mosque for the third holy site for Muslims when they want? Why shouldn't Christian Palestinians in the West Bank be able to travel to the Holy Sepulchre Church in Jerusalem whenever they want? I want a one-state solution. Everyone have the same rights, equal rights. Palestinians never ever declared Palestine as just for Arab Christians and Muslims. That's the difference. I've interviewed rabbis in Jerusalem that have a Palestinian flag. So that's where the U.S. media played their part and did a good job on the American people, maybe even yourself, because you keep thinking the word Palestine, well, that represents Arabs. No, Palestine represents Jews, Christians, Muslims, people who belong to that homeland. I have Jewish friends. I risk my lives for them. They do more work for the Palestinian rights than any Palestinian I've met my whole life. So you have to understand, it doesn't mean Arab, Christians, and Muslims when you hear the word Palestine. It means Jews also. The state of Israel, on the other hand, they don't want that. They want to declare themselves as a Jewish state. They brag about saying, well, we have 1.8 million Arabs that live inside the unoccupied territories. But they don't tell you that they don't have the same rights as their fellow citizens. Those are Jews. And a lot of the Jews, majority of the Jews now, it's going up every day. They are condemning the Israeli government, the right-wing government, saying this is not right. We got to stop treating these people like this. We all have to have the same rights. So if the state of Israel means Jewish state, then yes, the state of Israel should not exist. But the state of Israel, I'm not saying the Jewish people, the state of Israel, if they say we want the same rights for everyone, then I don't care what you call it.
I think that Jewish state means that everyone living there has to be a Jew, or wouldn't that be called the state of Jews rather than a Jewish state? Because Jewish does not only mean Jewish by religion, like Judaism, but it also means of Jewish descent, of the Jewish people, just like being of European descent or being French or being of French descent.
Well, like I told you earlier, and I have all the facts to prove it, they don't just call themselves a Jewish state and just leave it at that. They have different rights. They have lesser rights if you're Christian or Muslim. They have, like for example, a Jewish person from Brooklyn, New York, right now, who's never stepped foot on that land, could travel there right now and immediately have more rights and privileges than my great-grandfather or my sister or my uncles or my aunts who were born there, who are older in the state of Israel, who lived there through centuries. So I ask you just an honest question. Does that seem fair, or does that seem like that's right to you? Because I wouldn't allow it if I found out that suddenly a Jewish person living in the U.S., if he came back through customs, and Richard Boyd, the part of the Irish Parliament, he asked the Israeli ambassador, he asked him a simple question. He's like, I was over there, and I went, and I see the checkpoints. I went to the West Bank. And he told the Israeli ambassador, right at the Irish Parliament, how would you feel if suddenly we made a new law that questioned Jews only, and first that searched Jews only, and we always made you go through checkpoints coming to visit Ireland? So it's just a simple question. How would you feel if that happened to you and only you? Does that sound like it's a democracy when you have a lesser law, less privileged law for people because they're non-Jewish, because they're Christian or Muslim? Does that sound like a democracy to you?
So I want to not necessarily make it just a back and forth kind of thing, but do want to open up for other questions as well, and maybe bring it back to the theme of alter globalizations, community building, coalition building, and solidarity, because this is not necessarily the space that we have wanted to create on the specific issue, which could go back and forth, and there is a lot of important things to discuss. But bringing back on that aspect and diaspora and activism and art. So if any folks have questions related to that, we have a couple more minutes before lunch, which is everyone's favorite time, to continue that conversation.
Specifically for students here at university in America, like what do you think is the most impactful form of like organizing? So like not everyone can make a documentary, or like get the chance to go abroad. Like here, how would you say that students can best support this cause and like organizing some like organizations or specific types of protests or something that you think is the most impactful? And could do the most good in terms of like getting the message out there and educating people.
Her whole question was breaking up.
Okay, can you hear me? Well, I'll try to restate
the
question. Okay. So the question was, how do you, for students, for people in universities, and the fact not everyone can maybe make a documentary, what would you encourage as forms of activism and ways of organizing and coming together? Is that yeah.
Yes. It's really simple. One of the greatest presentations I've ever watched on Palestine and the SGS Conference going on. Before I continue, if you could just raise your hands. Have any of you ever heard of Dr. Mads Gilbert, a doctor from Norway? So he became famous during the last time Israel bombed Gaza for 51 consecutive days in 2014. This man is a true inspiration if you ever want to Google and research about him. He also wrote a book. He's been traveling to Gaza for 30 years. He saved thousands of lives. He was there the entire summer when Gaza was being bombed. He was told Gaza's going to be bombed when he entered Gaza that summer, and he still risked his life, and he entered and he stayed in Gaza. During the entire 51 days, Gaza was being bombed. So I traveled to Cincinnati from Minneapolis when he came and he did his tour in the US. And after he finished his amazing presentation, we all stood up, about 400 people in the audience. It was a sold out audience. We're just applauding for this man who risks his life. He's living comfortably in Norway and he travels to Gaza to save lives. And he's like, no, don't clap for me. He showed pictures of all these children being blown up. And he's like, they're the heroes, they're the ones who you need to applaud for. And he looked at us and he said, right now, no matter how much humanitarian aid and water the people of Gaza need, do you know the number one thing they need? And he looked at us and he literally gave us eye contact. He said, learn, educate yourselves, and tell others. The number one thing you guys could do to organize is educate yourselves and tell others. If you give them the facts, they will wake up. That's how it happened with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and other people like that. They would slowly start making some protests. And you hear people say protest no more. They want to tell you that because they want you to give up. They don't want you to believe that you can make a difference. So you have to understand you guys can make a difference. But there's the people in power that want you to give up, want you to believe that you'll never ever make a difference. Learn the facts, tell people. A really good friend of mine, Tom Shoemaker, was pro-Israeli his whole life. Blonde hair, blue eye. Can't get more American than my friend Tom from Ohio.
One day he was playing poker online, and some people started giving him some information. He started researching on YouTube. Next thing you know, he's like, what? This is crazy. I never heard about this. He started finding out that even the Christians in Palestine are persecuted. They live with second and third class lesser laws. And he did more research, and he found out how a lot of the churches in Jerusalem are attacked by Israeli extremists. He's like, I never hear this on the US media. And this man who was pro-Israel his whole life, not only now was a Palestinian activist who helped direct most of my tours when I traveled to Ohio and Michigan and Indiana showing the film, but he's married now to a Palestinian woman. So anybody who tells you can't make a difference is not giving you the right information. You guys, every single one of you sitting on that chair, can make a difference. But you can't just care about what's going on around your community. Like I said, I'm Palestinian. But my activism started for the rights of African Americans and started for indigenous people in high school. That's how it started. You have to care. Your heart has to hurt when you see other people suffer. I have friends from every community, LGBT, Jewish community, Christian community, everybody. Doesn't matter what you are. I care about everyone. You can come from a different planet. I don't care if you look green, pink, I don't care. It's just simple belief I have. Just treat everyone with respect and then you can get the same in return. But if you see an injustice happening to people, you got to stop making excuses. You got to stop. You got to stop saying, "Oh well, this or that." There is no excuses for injustice happening to anyone. People serving an injustice, you have to speak out for them. You have to get together. Find out about organizations. Ours is called the Anti-War Committee. There's others. Find out what organization that's in your community that might suit you. You don't have to be a person that even gets involved and does anything, but just attending these meetings helps them feel like more people care. Because life can't just be about, hey, let me get up my phone, let's see what the newest popular video out there is. It's sad that so many people that they know more about like the Kardashians, or they know more about their celebrities than they know about what's going on around the world, especially college students. And it's like, it's really sad to see this because you guys don't realize this, but this is the work of the people above. They just want to keep feeding you with things to distract you. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to listen to music. It's okay. I do all of that. But I also research what's going on around the world and try to learn the facts so I could use it for my ability to help wake up others about the truth about what's really going on across the world.
And if I may add a little bit on the university aspect of it, especially in universities of California, and as someone who did this in the undergrad, also a lot of the boycott, divestment, sanctions movements were happening and are kind of still happening specifically to like the UCs and the university, and those are great spaces that not only end up talking about Palestine, but also have been spaces of coalition building and getting support from folks from other communities who have also been oppressed or not even been oppressed, but just know that it's the right thing to do. And those, I think from there, we can kind of, if anyone has organizations that they are a part of or things that they are doing that they want to share and talk about, this is really the space here to do that. There's lunch right after this if people want to share over lunch and start expanding our networks and creating more solidarity that can be inspired from this. I think that would be a great outcome of this discussion that all of us can share. We have time for one more question. Could you go for it? All yours.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us today. As you were speaking about Palestine, I couldn't help but think about my visit to the occupied territory of Kashmir about 3 years ago. I was able to see a full-fledged police state in place and in action there with military outposts and barracks every few hundred meters, just about everywhere I went. Now, what's interesting is that I not too long ago learned that various actors in India have long histories of engagement with the Palestinian question, that is, of solidarious work with Palestinian folks in Palestine and other parts of the world. As you were speaking, I also couldn't help but go back to the very famous Condi Rebel Electives Black Feminist statement which includes the immortal assertion, if Black women were to be free, everyone would have to be free. Now, I'm wondering if a reconfiguration of that statement might be appropriate for the case of Palestine. If Palestine were to be free, everyone and everywhere else would have to be free. I'm basically asking about the possible impacts of Palestinian liberation upon the rest of the world. I mean, could you see that liberation stretching as far as Kashmir and even beyond? And what could that look like, and how could it come about?
Me personally, yes, I do believe that if we finally resolve the issue with the Palestinian conflict and give these Palestinians their dignity and their human rights, and just give everyone the same equal laws in Palestine, everyone, doesn't matter if you're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, just everyone have the same law. It will spread. Because usually, just look what happened in South Africa. Okay, it takes a long time because a lot of people don't stand up. The more people stand up or speak out, then it starts slowly spreading, it starts trickling elsewhere. Look what happens when a protest breaks out. It can break out anywhere, in New York. Next thing you know, you have protests where? You have them all over the country. This last shooting in Florida, this really started shooting in Florida. Now all of a sudden, people, students are walking out because people are slowly being, students and everyone being fed up with what's going on. That happens, yes. You go to Kashmir, you brought up India, that's a very good example. India has the Indian government has a strong support for state issues. They recently had Netanyahu and his wife over, and when it was going viral over social media, they're hosting these, this war criminal, and now he's in trouble. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Rami Kanaza. He's a Palestinian spoken word artist, and he wrote a really good post on Facebook. He's like the guy that blown up and killed children was applauded, but now he might be indicted because of corruption charges. So we'll let you go with bombing children, but we might get you for corruption. So that's the problem. But these governments don't change unless more people, more of their citizens, stand up and speak up. That's what you guys have to start realizing. Despite what happened with George Bush, I mean, it was all over Europe when they said, how could he still got reelected? Despite what Trump did, I mean, this guy 3 weeks before the election said something so degrading. I have 2 daughters, and I'm married. Said something so degrading against women. Yet majority of white women voted for him. My cousin, I remember me having this debate with my cousin. He's like, he has no chance to win now. I'm like, trust me, he'll have a chance to win. You don't know how racist some people could be. That's why I was saying earlier, you have to do your best to wake up people who have this ideology, thinking hate is good, or racism is good, or the view of one particular people should be above others good. Because until more people start believing everyone should have, the same equal laws, same thing with Kashmir. If more people in India start saying, hey, this is right in Kashmir, you're going to see that change. Slowly, I really believe it, slowly, as more and more Jews in the state of Israel, and it's increasing every day. You see her Silverman. She has 12 million followers on Twitter. She tweeted in defending Tamimi, the 16-year-old girl who's still sitting in a jail inside Israel, defending her, saying Israel needs to free her. She got attacked, but she's not backing away. So until more people stop supporting these oppressive governments, then these oppressive governments are not going to change. But you can't keep thinking we can't make a difference. Go back 100 years and tell the people there that 100 years from now we'll still have oppressive system, but African Americans won't be slaves anymore. They won't believe you. So things take time to change, and we still got a long way to go. But things change. But you need to go ahead and get involved also and talk to people and let them start changing. We've heard amazing stories how some people used to be, Nazis here in the U.S. They changed. They've been in prison. They woke up. Now they're against it. Now they're teaching young youth. They travel to go and teach them how hate is wrong. And if you see them, you'll be like, you let them sit with your own kids because they've changed. But it's us. You can't just sit back like the song by John Mayer, waiting for the world to change. You can't just sit back and wait for it to change. You have to get involved, and you have to make a difference. It's on us to make a difference.
Thank you. On that note, we have come to the end of this discussion, so I want to thank you, Sabri, again for joining us and for stimulating this really good conversation. And I hope that we can continue these conversations later, right after this specific discussion and after this conference, and continue to work together and expand our networks of solidarity and community building, coalition building. Because that, like we said, is what is going to bring the change, right, and that alter kind of globalization that we do need, and that is the theme of this whole conference. So thank you all also for engaging in it.
Can I say one thing to them really quick?
Yes, go for it.
Thank you. So I just want everyone, especially the girl way back in the group that was asking me about when I was trying to clarify to her the difference between the Jewish people and the state of Israel. So hopefully when I tell up here that it's been uploaded on YouTube, you guys can watch the documentary. Some things that you're gonna see that you've probably never seen before. And I got a lucky break on this one. You're gonna see an Israeli soldier, not a former, but a current Israeli soldier. That I got a lucky break, and my camera was on, but I pretended my camera was off. You're gonna hear him. You're gonna hear with your own ears me asking him, why is it that when a Palestinian throws stones, they're shot at, they're arrested, they're tagged? When a Jewish person throws stones, nothing's being done about it. You're going to hear him say the problem is because a lot of these soldiers are Jewish, they don't do nothing. Do you have any idea how powerful that is that a current Israeli soldier was caught on camera admitting that they stand by, and then I follow it with pictures showing you even adults throwing stones, and soldiers just standing by. I'm not saying allow Palestinians to throw stones and then stop. I'm saying everyone just have the same laws. They're coming up with a new law that says 20 years to a Palestinian to throw stones. While I'm supplying you with footage, pictures, and audio that when a Jewish person throws stones, a Palestinian, even at children, the soldiers are literally just standing by them, just standing right by them. So I ask you, does that sound like a democracy, or does that sound like that's a fair and just system? So anyone with a heart will understand when you watch the documentary, the answer is no.
For that, thank you again for joining us. That concludes the phone discussion, and I believe lunch is ready to go, so we can transition into that. Thank you all.